Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, and others who shall remain nameless. You know exactly who you are. All of you. Yeah, it appears we have a sunshine day. And just a minute ago, the geese were making an ungodly racket, but they seem to have calmed down. So, yeah, it is a cold morning. Mm. Mm. Yeah, perfect morning to talk about evolution. Yeah, so as I said, we're going to talk about evolution, and I'm just off of Owen Sound Harbor, so yeah. Um, what is evolution? What is evolution? Yeah. Evolution is a process of imperfect genetic replication filtered through environmental selective pressures. It is not magical, not mystical, has no doctrines, no dogmas, and makes no promises about how you're going to end up after you die. It doesn't. It's just a biological process of imperfect genetic replication. There. That wasn't so hard, now was it? And yet, for so many young Earth creationists, it is the most ridiculously difficult concept to grasp. Why is that? Why do young Earthers have such a hard time grasping something so simple, so basic, and so rudimentary? Good question. So you may be wondering, what is the best evidence for evolution? What is the best evidence for evolution? And I think, for me, the best evidence is simply the fact that it has been observed actively taking place in the wild and on farms and on ranches and plantations and in laboratories. It has been observed taking place. And in fact, we are able to manipulate it for our own ends. We are quite literally breeding plants in such a way that we are able to selectively breed them for the characteristics that we want. Humans acting as a driver of evolution, but also in nature. Livestock, wild animals, and plants of every sort, selectively growing or dying according to environmental pressures. And yes, human intervention is an environmental pressure, but so too is change of climate. So too is change in patterns of predation. These are all factors that influence evolution. But if the fact that people have actually watched evolution actively taking place isn't enough to convince you, well, there's also the biostratification of the fossil record, and there is shared ERVs, that's endogenous retroviruses. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And all that together is pretty much undeniable evidence that evolution happens. The fact that it's observed taking place, the fact that the fossil record is sorted according to different types of life forms at different times in history, and the fact that there are shared ERVs carried by numerous species. And let's face it, you do not get the same ERV in the same place in the genome of two unrelated species by coincidence. It just doesn't happen. If you see multiple species that look similar and have the same ERVs in the exact same place in their genomes, it's pretty much guaranteed they're related to each other. And that is how we know that humans are related to chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans. It's also how we know that whales are related to hippopotami. Yeah. Shared ERVs are a thing. And more importantly, the biostratification of the fossil record is a thing. And no, the fossil record was not a single deposit made by a flood. It is multiple deposits, thousands of deposits, made by numerous floods, droughts, sandstorms, and volcanic ash falls, spread out over quite literally hundreds of millions of years, with different assemblages of animals in each layer, based not upon their ability to swim or run, but upon their degree of advancement relative to the past. So yes, young Earth creationism has certainly bit off a far larger chunk than they are capable of chewing. And that is a problem for them. Of course, when you're dealing with the young Earth creationist cult, no evidence is ever enough. And they will always find an excuse, and that is just a fact of life when you're dealing with young Earth creationism. Oh, well. It wants to burp, but it's not being a burp. Yeah, in any case, the evidence exists. Young Earth creationists refuse to acknowledge that it exists, and they deny, up to the point where no matter how often you explain to them, this is the evidence, they still say, oh, no evidence has been presented. Yeah. And when you present the same evidence again, they will twist and spin and distort and say, oh, that proves the flood, that proves a young Earth. No, it doesn't. It doesn't prove any flood. It doesn't prove any young Earth. It proves that evolution has taken place. But we are dealing with young Earth creationism after all. A cult that refuses to learn, because knowledge and understanding are, let's face it, absolutely anathema to these people. Because ultimately, they live in fear that if they question just one little bit of their religious doctrine, their God will sweep down and punish them and torture them forever. And this is why we still have young Earth creationism. That and the preachers who are making a fortune off of this, they know they can scare these people into believing, or at least professing to believe, pardon me, the most batshit crazy nonsense imaginable. They can do it. Because at the end of the day, young Earth creationism rests firmly on a foundation of blind terror. Whereas evolution is simply an observed
biological process that actively takes place in real time. So, yes, that's evolution. An observed, documented process of imperfect genetic replication filtered through environmental selective pressures, which can include, ta-da, human intervention. Yeah. Evolution.